On a clear hot day with no wind to raise the dust, a keen eye might just make out the sandstone buttes and mittens of Monument Valley in the mysterious Navajo country. To one committed to a life on that windswept mesa, all this grandeur might have seemed a mockery against the harsh and bitter realities of dragging a living from the soil beneath one's feet. But to me it was breathtaking and uplifting. I had never known so vast and so seemingly empty a world. Perhaps in that I was at one with the Anasazi people who had gone before. I cannot read their minds, but it is almost impossible not to wonder with what awe and emotion they had seen that vastness in their own time. At any rate, and with philosophical speculation laid aside, my own preconceptions of archaeology were forever conditioned by the impact of that setting. Seen in a broader context, archaeology to me has seemed to be immanent in the very soil, not separable from it, but with almost mystical links to the land, the flora, the fauna, and the folk, not only those who lived upon it long ago, fashioning from its body the tools and dwellings that sustained them, and nourishing upon the fruits of its fecundity, but those who in a later day dug them up and ponder them.
People have come in and out of that canyon for hundreds and hundreds of years, and we're just so happen to be the next group of ethnic people that reside in that canyon.
The Rainbow Bridge Monument Valley expedition started really with two extraordinary men and an idea. John Wetherill, with his wife and son, settled in the Kayenta, Arizona area in the Four Corners of the Southwest. And he opened a trading post, and he began in the early 20th century to provision all of the expeditions that would come through the area. Ansel Hall, the director of the expedition, was a park ranger who was the head of education for the western sector for the National Park Service. And so Ansel Hall met with John Wetherill, and they decided they could create a huge expedition, but they wanted to start very small. So Ansel put out a poster, wanted 10 men for an exploration. Well, he ended up getting 77 people, plus scientists from all over the country. This is the depths of the Depression. And he decided, I will take this on, and we will make sure that we have funding. And he went out and he raised money from all sorts of sources, private money. He was a member of the Explorers Club, which was a very moneyed group in New York who supported explorations all over the world. And they felt that this was an unmapped and new area to explore, so they supported Ansel. And people from the federal government, from the Department of the Interior, and then of course Ford Motor Company came along and said they would support the expedition in trade for advertising the use of their new, brand new V8 Ford cars and trucks.
When you look at the history of US policy with Native Americans at the time, in the Navajo communities, herds were being reduced. Hunger was a real issue for families. It's no wonder that being offered jobs was a positive thing. And so people bringing jobs in was not necessarily something that was bad, but being able to look back and see what the conditions were that made people agree to do what they did, gives us a real sense of the agency of all the parties involved.
With the folks living out there and coming in for 6 years, they were establishing camps along the way. And I know in some areas they were actually dynamiting roads and trails and things. And as an archaeologist, I see those as being part of the archaeological landscape of the area. And so those areas play just as important role as the prehistoric ruins, because it's a page of the history of the archaeology in Arizona and in southern Utah.
I think one of the most remarkable things about the expedition is the scale of the collaboration. Universities and institutions from across the country became involved because Ansel was willing and wanting to give scientists and students of science and archaeology opportunities during the Depression to practice their skills and to learn about being in an environment that was completely unknown to most of them. Most of these young men had never traveled outside of their local area.
It's like the perfect timing for an exhibition on how collaborations happen and how collaborations continue today, how they're able to work together to put on display all of these multiple stories that include native voice, includes archaeology, includes geology, paleontology. It just depends on what avenue we want to share.
We have collaborated with Paleo West, an archaeological consulting firm, to create for us a very large-scale digital model that we will be able to literally move around in with virtual reality and augmented reality technology.
The content that we're developing through this project is going to be focused on models of landscapes and of architecture. Those tools really provide an immersive experience for the general public to experience these places that have lots of different meanings to lots of different people, but are generally inaccessible. And so there are lots of ways that we can go in there and collect data and then produce content that can bring the experience to people who might not otherwise be able to access it.